This is it. This is the thing I've been working on for the past week-ish. I think a little more than that. I've been playing, of course, a lot of TFT. And I decided, why not rank every single encounter in the entire set? Why not, you know? Um, there was a bit of trouble, I will say, which brings me to my next slide. My rules and method. The thing is, there have been encounters added and removed throughout this set, and I've tried as comprehensively as possible to get them all. But there is going to be inevitably something that has been added later that I've missed, or something that has been removed in a later part of the set that I still have in there. So, you know, stuff like that happens. There are in total 83 encounters. So, yeah, it's inevitable that I'm gonna miss one or more of them. Or again, include some that have already been removed from the set. So, yeah, it happens. But yeah, what I did is I first divided the encounters into tier based on their designs from F to S, of course. And I tried to be as objective as possible. It is very hard sometimes, especially when there are so many that are very similar. Like, a lot of them are, this champion grants you this. That is the vast majority of all encounters. But still, I wanted to be somewhat objective, but the ranking will include some of my opinion. I will be fair and say that some that I myself I'm not a huge fan of will be higher than others, because I will still admit that the design of it is still very creative and, you know, fun at least to play for some people, maybe not for me. But especially the ranking, like if you see the difference between like 45 and 40, stuff like that, that will be based more or less on my opinion, because as I said, a lot of them are very similar. That being said, there will also not all of them will be included, because there are some encounters have versions of each other. That being said, like for example, Kha'Zix, he has the XP augment that grants you XP costs 3 gold instead of 4, and there's a permanent one, and there's the 3-round one. For those kind of encounters, I'm just gonna take the permanent one. For the ones that only have a temporary one, then of course I'm just gonna take the one that that exists, the temporary one. So yeah, with that being said, let's start this and let's get right into the F tier. These are the very, very few encounters that when they occur, I'm actually like, really? This one? Out of all 83 encounters that you could give me, you choose this one. And coming in at my very, very bottom spot, Cho'Gath. Cho'Gath offers you a boon if you sate his hunger. Now this one, I cannot think of a single moment in my any time I play TFT when I would like to take this one. I simply don't like it. It is fine if you're more focused on components, on strengthening the champions that you already have. Like if you're late game, if you're like 5, 6, or like even in stage 6, you get this encounter and you basically already have all the champions that you need, then it's definitely worth taking this. However, I don't like it. Sorry. I said I was gonna be objective as possible, but this one is simply just my personal opinion. I don't like this one. Now, the next one in F tier, and for spoilers, the last one in F tier is Sevir's Rallying Cry makes you speedy. Now, this encounter, in theory, does nothing. It shouldn't influence you too much. However, I myself have experienced this, and I'm not the only one. I've seen other people do this. On the carousel, this can actively hurt you. Uh, what can happen is that because it makes you very, very fast, like ridiculously fast, especially if you already have something like Tiniest Titan, then you are insanely quick. It is very easy to overshoot your item and pick up the wrong one. I've had this happen to me a couple of times, and I've read a bit of online. I read a bit of, well, yeah, sorry to say, but I went to Reddit, um, and yeah, I've heard more people say that they've missed this and that they've missed their items because of this encounter. So this is the only two that I will put in F tier, which I actively just don't like. Moving on to D tier. D tier is, well, annoying or just boring. That being said, these are the encounters that I will still say give you something that can be helpful, that most of the time is helpful. It just, I just don't like it. I just don't like what it gives, or either it just does nothing, and we've all seen it way too much. But yeah. One of which being Ash reveals your upcoming opponent. Now this one, I think, will... Well, it puts me in a spot, let's just say that, because a lot of like more try-hardy players, a lot more try-hardy, I don't like the word, but try-hard is kind of the word. More competitive players, I think is the right word, really love this one because it can be very useful. Where if you're in like a competitive setting and you get this encounter, oh great, I know exactly who I'm going against. This is I know exactly who I'm playing against next round. I can position for it. Maybe if you have a lucky Zephyr, then you can Zephyr their carry. You know, it opens up fun things. I myself am a very casual player. I don't want to think about this when I'm playing TFT. TFT is very much a relaxing game for me, so this encounter doesn't really do much for me. So, hey, that's me. And I just don't really like it. I will, however, say that again, it works. 80, Janna grants you 2 Zephyrs, which vanish after 3 rounds. This one is also one that I can objectively say works. This is very helpful, especially if you get it in the later stages. Zephyr just annoys me. It's very simple. Zephyr is just it takes away 2 of your carries or your main tank or whatever. It's just very, very annoying to me. I don't like it. I said I was going to be as objective as possible, but yeah, there will be some opinion here, and this is another one of mine. Like, especially the low tiers and the high tiers will be... I just don't like it. I'm sorry. This is very annoying. Again, very effective in competitive play, but I've already said I'm not a competitive player. Now, next, 79. This is also one that I think a lot more people can agree with. When you sell a unit, Diana cleaves their completed item into components. The thing here is, the only one that exists, or the only one that I've seen, for sure, is this only works this round. It's not permanent. This one is either useless or does nothing. It borderline does nothing. And yeah, it can be useful in very rare circumstances. It can be useful when you have like, oh, I have items on my carrier and I want to transition to a different carrier, but I don't like my items. Trust me, there will be encounters later in this game. Yeah, it's useless or does nothing. My chat says, yeah, it's hard to say. It's rarely used. I've seen it so rarely used. And I don't know. I don't like it personally. I've never heard somebody say, "Oh, the Diana encounter that cleaves my items. That is my absolute favorite." Let's be honest. No, you don't. No, you don't. very situational. Yeah, very situational, but situational to a fault. Like, it is so stupidly situational, and when it can be used, it's still like, huh, alright. That 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 happened, I guess. Thank you, Diana. But it very rarely works, especially because it's only one round. It only works on the round that you encounter it in. And it's very rare that in that exact round, you can have one carry that you want to get rid of, and another carry already available that can use the items. It is so stupidly situational. So yeah, if this was something, um, if this was something that lasts an entire game, awesome. It would be so much better. But I've only seen the one that lasts one round, and that means, I'm sorry, this is D tier. This is very occasionally helpful. Number 78. Irelia frees all players to move freely on this carousel. I don't know. Is this a hot take? I don't know. But I hate this one. It is, as someone who is somewhat easily overwhelmed, it is very annoying because you have a very brief moment to see, oh my god, what do I take? What do I take? And then everybody goes for everything, and most of the time, I'm just left with, okay, there are 2 item picks left, and they're both garbage. Fuck you, Irelia. Don't like you in League, don't like you in TFT either, at least as an encounter. The champion is fine, but it's just, it's too chaotic for me, at least. But yeah. 77. Zoe grants you 2 Trickster's glasses. They vanish in 3 rounds. Now this is another one that is similar to the Janna one with the Zephyrs. Trickster's glasses, they can, at best they can duplicate a very strong tank or something that gives you like a new body of just a slab of beef, essentially, to stop more attacks from coming in, to stop your backline from being hurt. At worst, it does nothing. Again, just 2 extra bodies in front of your carry. Yeah, I've seen it used, but the thing is, most of the time, when you get this encounter, your tanks will already have 3 items. Your carries will already have 3 items. If you itemize well. Sometimes it happens that you don't have 3 items, you have 2, but the units that you want to use it on, aka your main tank or your main carry, most likely have 3 items, so you can't put it on them, so you're like, well, I guess I'll put it on this, and then it's like, oh, okay, well, I have 2 extra bits of health. Again, not unusable, not useless, but just meh. Just very meh. And here's another one. Working out with Seth makes you bigger. Now, this one, a lot of people have memed this one to death. And I am definitely participating in that. Working out with Seth makes you bigger. It was fun for the first, like, 2, maybe 3 encounters. And they're like, oh, wait, look, big fluff of Poro, stuff like that. Sure, it's fun. But, yeah, it does nothing. It doesn't help you. It doesn't hurt you either, which why is it, like, in D+ tier, high D tier. But we've all grown accustomed and annoyed by this encounter, because we've seen it way too fucking much. So, yeah. Sorry, but Seth, this wasn't your encounter, bro. Yeah, it's pure whimsy, pure cosmetical, and it's fun cosmetical, but let's be honest, every single other encounter grants you something, and this one grants you nothing. So, yeah. On to C tier. C tier is just, alright, I'll take it. Cool. It happens. That's fine. I'll take it. And let's go to number 75. Kindred offers you a temporary item which lasts for 3 rounds. Now, why is this one the first one in C tier and the lowest of the C tiers? Because it still grants you something beneficial. It still grants you, I think, it can offers you stuff like Sunfire or Sunfire Redemption. What is it? Guinsoo's. I thought Infinity Edge or something like that as well. Like, just there's always going to be a choice between an offensive and a defensive item, which is good, which is why it's not in D tier. The thing is, it's temporary. Exactly, it's temporary. And that just makes it not all that great, not all that engaging. Most of the time, it is also like, well, okay, I guess I'll have a Guinsoo's for 3 rounds, or I guess I'll have Anti-Heal for 3 rounds, which late game can still be useful. Just free Anti-Heal for 3 rounds can be very useful if you get it at like 5-2. That is great. But most of the time you're like, what? Well, 74, another set encounter. For the next 3 rounds, set lends you some training dummies. Well, we all know training dummies. They are literally just sacks of stuff in your front line. Temporary ones. It's not even permanent. Like, if these were permanent, like 2 permanent training dummies, everybody was like, alright, cool, thank you. But these are temporary, and it's like, yeah, well, that was a waste of an encounter. That is basically what C tier is. It's like, well, alright. That was a waste of an encounter. Thank you for wasting my time. 73. Gnar lets you reroll the next augment offering 1 additional time. Now, this is one of those that is very rarely useful to me, because I'm a flex player. I always like to play what I hit. I like to play around what my augments give me. So this one does very, very little to me. Most of the time, whenever I get like a gold augment, I use it to roll for maybe a hero augment or something. If it's prismatic, then it's of course very useful, so that saves it from D tier. But most of the time you're like, what? Thank you, Gnar. Cool, bro. It helps, I guess. Yeah. What is there to say? It's just useful-ish sometimes. Sure. Doesn't harm you, so yeah. And here we have the counterpart of that. Teemo lets you reroll all your augments and extra time this game. Now, why I chose to separate those and include both of them is because the Teemo one can encounter at the beginning, while the Gnar one, I think, cannot. So that is why I separated them. And this one you can plan around more, because it's very often at the beginning, or at least very early, and then you're like, okay, then I can play around more specifically what my board has and let my augments work with my board instead of letting your board work around your augments like I usually play. So it changes what you play, but again, most of the time it won't do that much. Now, this is also the quintessential, thank you, Kane. It helps, thank you. A Death Blade and a Death Cap for 3 rounds. The thing with these items is they're in very, very little cases, both of these items are useful. Like the Death Blade or the Death Cap, AD or AP items, most of the time you only have one sort of damage that you do. You're gonna play either around AD damage or AP damage. Very rarely both. So when you're playing like a duelist comp and you're like, oh, well, a Death Blade for my Aurelia. Thank you, Kane. And then you have a random Death Cap that you have nothing to do with. It just, most of the time, either one are unusable. Or at least pretty much a nothing item. So, and they're temporary as well, so it doesn't do much. Now this one, I am not entirely positive if this one's still in the game, but when this was, it says Thresh moves the 2-1 and 3-2 augments to random rounds. Now this one is very specific, as there are a couple of these kind of encounters. But this one is specifically this low in C tier, because 2-1 and 3-2 means that there is a possibility that you won't get the first augment until 4-2, which makes the game super boring. And then at 4-2 you get like 3 augments, and then it's like, oh boy, it makes the first half of the game extremely boring and the latter half of the game extremely overwhelming. So I don't know. It's a fun idea, moving, the augments to random rounds. There's also the possibility that it can just get it in the early game, that you get like 2 augments in stage 2, which can be fun, but it won't change up the game too much. And if it does, it's probably in a worse way. Riven adds a component to each champion on the carousel. We all know this one, just an extra component on the carousel. Again, a little too overwhelming for myself, but that is very personal, which is why I ranked it a little lower than maybe some would. But not all that eventful. Could be fun to get like a double tier if you have like a Syndra comp and haven't done any stuff like that. It's not unusable, still very beneficial, but yeah, meh. Tahm offers you a component and Valor Gold. Similar to the Riven encounter, it's like, well, an extra component or a bit of gold. I'll take it. It's fine. Sure. Whatever. Thank you, Tahm Kench. Galio adds a defensive component, and 66. Yone adds an offensive component. These are basically tied. I just ranked Yone a bit higher because I probably would rather have an extra offensive component than a defensive component. But most of the time, this doesn't make a difference. These are both just fine. Thank you. It helps. It is what it is. Sometimes you have like an extra. Sometimes when these come in at the later stages, when there are completed items on the carousel, and you have that one component left on your bench, then you can get 2 completed items in one carousel, which is nice. But yeah, just fine. Which you'll hear me say a lot, because trust me, we have quite a bit of encounters still to go. Alone offers you a choice of completed items, similar to the one I just said. An extra completed item, thank you. These at least are permanent, so they're very helpful. And if you have something like a secondary carry or a secondary tank, it's easier to get these carries or tanks to complete it to 3 completed items. Nice, thank you. Makes you not as reliable on one carry. Definitely helpful, but not eventful. R bestows a combat blessing for the rest of the game. This is either AD, AP, or HP. Yeah, again, just a bit of stats. Thank you very much. Not unusable, but far from like exciting. So yeah. With that, we're moving on to B tier. These are the quintessential. Thank you. That's helpful. Great. Love it. But with a little more like, oh, I actually have something. I can actually work around this. I can work with this. Instead of being like, well, that happened. They're borderline more helpful, I'd say. Starting off with 63. Syndra moves the 2-1 and 4-2 augments to random rounds. Now, as I said before, in the Thresh one, the 2-1 augment, moving a 2-1 augment to a random round is divisive. Because a lot of people like when you start with an augment, because the 2-1 augment, it gives you board direction. It sometimes helps you, gives you that little push towards a comp or towards a unit. Maybe gives you a 2-star unit. Gives you extra items that you can use to strengthen your board. The 2-1 augment is very, very important here. The thing is, the 4-2 augment, if you move that to a random round, there's a significant chance that it's moved to an earlier round. Which means that you get a lot more augments very early. And in the early game, I don't mind that as much, because in the early game, to me, the boards aren't as overwhelming. There aren't a lot of items and a lot of things you have to keep track of yet. So an extra augment is like, okay, it gives my board more direction. Just gives everything a little more pizzazz, if you will. I don't know. But yeah, solid. But it can sometimes mean that you have to wait the 3-2 before you get an augment, which can make you very indecisive. Now, Lux grants you 2 random support items. They vanish in 3 rounds. Now, temporary support items. Support items can be very helpful. You have, of course, stuff like the locket that can be useful. Just some extra shielding and magic armor and a mark for your front line. Sometimes you get something that is perfectly fitted with your comp. Yeah, they're temporary. They vanish in 3 rounds. Again, always useful, never eventful. Illaoi moves the 3-2 augment to a random round. Well, we've all seen this one, and you probably already know my reasoning for this. The 3-2 augment, this is more of a, okay, sure. Maybe you were lucky and you get 2 augments in stage 2. Maybe you're a bit more unlucky, you get 2 augments in stage 4, or even some in stage 5 or even 6. And that's where it starts to get more annoying, which is why Illaoi is ranked a bit lower on the list. Because we're approaching the halfway mark, but the Illaoi can be a little more annoying than others. So, sure. Morgana upgrades your next 2 cost or grants you some gold. Now, because of this one can either be extremely helpful or borderline useless. Because upgrading your next 2 cost, if you get this encounter on like stage 3 or stage 2, when you're looking for, maybe you're playing like a Dryad comp and you're looking for a Gnar, then this one is extremely useful. Or like a Kindred, or what is there? Give me a quick one. My mind blanks. Maybe a Teemo, if you want to play that Teemo reroll comp. It can be useful. It can be very useful. But otherwise, it's just a bit of gold. Sure. Lilia moves all augments to random rounds. Now, this one we've all seen, and everybody then sighs in despair like, oh boy, please let it be a good one. Please let it be a good one. Please bless the RNG gods that we get 2 augments in stage 2. And then you find out that all the augments have been moved to stage 4 and up. And then you sigh a sigh of, well, this is gonna be a boring game. So, yeah, again, another one that is either extremely helpful and extremely fun, or frustrating as fuck. So, yeah. Irelia causes your next shops to show 1 champion of each cost. Now, this is another one that is either extremely helpful or not helpful at all. Depends on your level. Because if you've played like a reroll comp and you have like 2-3 stars and you're looking for that final ones, and maybe look for like you're level 7 and you're maybe looking for like that lucky 5 cost that completes your comp entirely, Irelia can help a lot with that. On the other hand, though, if you're level 10 somehow by this encounter, and Irelia shows up, then, well, say goodbye to your 3-star 5 cost, because it's very unlikely that you're gonna hit the 5 cost that you want, because there are quite a bit of them. So the chances that your 5 cost that you specifically want appears in the shop is not all that high. So can be a bit annoying, but most of the time is at least helpful. Kha'Zix grants you the next augment now. Again, can be extremely useful. If you're playing a reroll comp and you've already had like your hero augment, your Koboko hero augment or something, and you get the next augment grants you 2 lesser duplicators, which means you get your Koboko 3 at like 2.5 or something. That's amazing. That is so stupidly helpful and very, very good to have. Sometimes it's also just like, meh, feels like a C tier. Okay, I'll take this kind of augment. So, couldn't rank it, that high, but it's still far from useless. Soraka offers you a choice of support items. Again, support items, kind of items that are like, great, helpful. Next. This is at least permanent, so yeah, you get a permanent extra support item. Great. Kindred offers you a choice, red or blue. Now this means that you either get a red buff and I think a Zoe and a Garen, or a blue buff and a Tahm Kench and something else. Something like that. So yeah, definitely not useless. But sometimes you're like, well, a red or a blue buff, neither one helps me. A red buff is most of the time still useful, but there are very certain scenarios where maybe you've already slammed a Sunfire, maybe you already have a red buff or a Gwynsus, and you're like, well, guess I have a red buff now as well. Because blue buffs are very situational, and if you're an Arcanist player, you're extremely happy with this one, because you get a blue buff for your Syndra. Awesome. But most of the time, it's just like, yeah, I'll take it. I'll take some champions. Volibear fills the carousel with 3 cost champions. Now, in this realm of the list, you'll see a lot of carousel encounters, because carousel encounters are inherently more random than the normal encounter ones. So they will be a bit penalized for that, some of them at least. And this one is, I think, ranked the lowest, aside from the Aurelia one, but I've already explained why. And yeah, just a carousel of 3 cost champions gives you essentially 2 more gold, or maybe if you're lucky, a very good one, very good 3 cost that you can use if you maybe need another Amumu, and there's an Amumu on a carousel with a good item. Great, 3-star Amumu, still very helpful. Most of the time, just 2 extra gold. Senna offers to set you on a win or loss streak. This one is again, it is either extremely helpful or not, or like severely, or just severely hurts you. First of all, when you're already on a win streak, say you're already on a 5-win streak, this basically does nothing. But if, for example, you've just found a very strong board, you've just found like you've 2-starred a 4 cost, and you're like, okay, great, I've had my loss streak, now I can start win streaking. This Senna encounter appears, and like, damn, all right, I can set myself on a win streak now. Take a little bit of a gamble, but I am quite strong. I just hit a great upgrade, and I can continue the win streak without punishment. That is awesome. It is very helpful in that case. But most of the time, it's like, well, thanks for the gold. Thanks for a bit of gold. You can also get screwed out of it, because you might have something that, yeah, you just get screwed over. You just have you just have to fight an enemy that is, yeah, just better than you, or decided because of the Senna encounter to all in, spend all their money, and you choose to set yourself on a win streak as well. And they decide to win streak harder, and there goes your encounter. Not always great, but when it is, awesome. Morgana Vista Carousel with 4 cost champions. Now this one is also relatively low to the most of the carousel encounters, because 4 cost, especially when it happens early, can be incredibly. It can sway the game a lot, because 4 costs are very powerful units that are most of the time made to be late game carries. So if you get, again, if you're an Arcanist player or a Duelist player, and you find your Syndra on the carousel, or your Lee Sin, awesome. But if you don't find that, it's just 3 more gold. And that disparity between that is a lot larger than with 3 costs. Because 3 costs are more often more generalist, aren't, if you don't 3-star them, aren't exactly your main carries. So yeah, the disparity here is a bit too high, I think. Nora vs. Carousel with 2-star 2 costs. Well, Similar idea to what we just saw. If you happen to be a 2-cost reroller and you find your Teemo or your Gnar or your Kindred, great, awesome. You have another 2-star 2-cost. If you don't, 5 gold. That's it. Awesome. Caitlyn grants you 4 free rerolls. Sweet. 4 rerolls can be very useful. Again, if you're a reroll player, awesome. If you're not, you can maybe save you can maybe use them, see if you can get maybe an upgrade, and you know, have that upgrade, be very strong, and are like, okay, now I can maybe win streak off of this, and then power level to 9, and then find my late game carry. It's most of the time very useful. So, and when it's not, it's still fine. It's still 4 free rerolls. Can never hurt you. Soraka as a support item with every champion on the carousel. Now this one I just ranked a little higher than the just normal regular one because I'm a TFT player. I like a bit of RNG, and a bit of RNG means that sometimes you get the perfect champion with the perfect item and the perfect support item, and then you're like, hell yeah, I'm so set for the rest of the game. Awesome feeling. If you're not, an extra support item barely ever hurts, so still useful. Tristana grants you a gift of gold. This is what I would say is the pinnacle of like, thanks, appreciate it. Just more gold. How can that ever be wrong? Aphelios calls down 2 component anvils for you. 2 component anvils, that's 2 extra components. That's great. You can maybe, finally, again, you can maybe get your blue buff going. Maybe you get a Gwynsus for your Aurelia. Whatever there is. Maybe a Bloodthirster for your Lee Sin or Kayn. There are a lot of opportunities to put with this because it's not just one completed item. You can choose which component you want every single time. And that's great. So, yeah. Very, very rarely do you not get the item you want out of this. So, when it does, it's a very feels bad, man, but hey. More dark, I guess. I don't know. Ornn grants you a choice of artifacts. Now here we see I think the first artifacts encounter on the list, and that's simply because I like artifacts a lot more than support items. I might be alone in this, I don't know. But artifacts are a lot more sway, they are a lot more fun to watch, a lot more flashy, a lot more transformative than support items. And a choice of artifacts, if you happen to be like you're playing a Tahm Kench Bard game, and you hit that Forbidden Idol for Tahm Kench, and you have a 10,000 HP Tahm Kench with a Dragon Claw, and you're like, damn, yeah, this works. This works really well. And sometimes it's like, okay, free artifact, never bad. Aatrox gives you a choice between a component anvil, player health, or gold. Now this one is ranked a little higher, still around the middle though, because the choices aren't exactly invigorating. You're not exactly excited every time you get this, but it is still like they're still very different choices aside from the Ahri one, which is like stats. This one is a component anvil, which is just good. Player health, which can be very useful if you're playing a fortune game or something, or gold, which is just always helpful. Yeah, very different choices here, which ranks it a lot higher in my opinion. Udyr grants you 2 components based on the chosen form. Now this one's higher than the component anvil, simply because I think that this one fits Udyr extremely well. I always like a bit of thematic in my TFT games, and this thematic just fits Udyr very well. You can either choose attack, defense, or magic, I think. And attack is just AD items, so I think you get like a sword and a bow. Then you get defense is a cloak and a chain vest, and magic is a rod and a tear, I think. So yeah, just helpful, always good, with a little bit of add of thematic flair. Makes it a pretty great encounter, if you ask me. Ahri's Kiss grants increased player health. Just increased player health is always useful. Sometimes it does feel a little bad when you're a win streaker on 100 HP, and then you see that the fortune player gets 10 increased HP, and you're like, okay, well, he's gonna cash out now. That sometimes a little feels bad, but hey, you still have all the opportunity to go for it and still secure that second or third place. And that is also a win in my book. And yeah, if you don't think so, that's fine. Make your own list. Let me know. Diana grants you a treasure armory that can be rolled up to 3 times. Well, this is simply, you can, I think this is the 3 completed items one, if I remember correctly. So only 3 rolls means that it's a very likely chance that you don't exactly get the items you want. And that is not always bad. Sometimes you have to roll with whatever you got. But yeah, 3 rolls is a little low, so maybe you don't always get what you want, which happens. Aluna powers 1 tier of champions. Since when did you win streak? Thank you, Falky. Aluna powers 1 tier of champions. This is just very good if you're playing a reroll comp. Not all that helpful if you're playing to level or you're playing like Fortune. She either gives you... she gives 2 costs, 3 costs, or 4 costs. So if you're playing to level, you can still play around 4 costs, but the buff will be a lot less. But it's still, you know, it's helpful. It's a bit of stats for a couple of champions. Never useless. Bit of exciting. A bit of like good fun if you happen to play, like, for example, 3 cost or 2 cost reroll, and you're like, well, hell yeah, give me that. Now, breaking the halfway point, more or less, Nico calls down a random 5-cost spirit. They vanish in 3 rounds. A random 1-star 5-cost is not bad to have. Sometimes you luck out and you get a Hui or something and you can duplicate. You can have essentially a free 3-cost. Never bad. Sometimes you just, like, you're playing a duelist comp and you get, what is there? You get like Wukong or something, and you're like, well, okay, I get a Wukong, sure, I'll take that. Or you're playing Arcanist and you get an Irelia, and you're like, well, all right, I guess I got an Irelia. So a bit more disparity between the two, but yeah, most of the time you're pretty happy with what you get. And again, you can high roll and get a play and just get a free 3-cost essentially. Jax grants you a choice between gold, rerolls, or champions. Now this is similar to the Aatrox one we discussed a bit earlier. This one, I just think that the options are nicer. Gold is just always good, rerolls is always fine, champions is most of the time fun, or at least a bit more gold. So I think the choices here are nicer, but it's a very similar deal to the Aatrox one. Illaoi grants you 8 rerolls this round. This is another one that you can either hit extremely hard on, or basically does nothing. If you hit extremely hard and you hit like your 3-star 2 cost, your 3-star 1 cost, if this happens very early, and you're like, well, I now have 2 3-star 1 costs in my team at 2-4, and I'm like, great, love it. 2-5, sorry. That's awesome. Late game can be great to like 3-star 4 costs or something like that. Always useful, sometimes able to hit very hard with it, but sometimes it does basically nothing. Well, another Nico one. Nico summons a random 3-star 1 cost, they vanish in 3 rounds. Now a 3-star 1 cost, most of the time, is very, very helpful, because it's still a lot of health. So at the very least, you get something good. And definitely when it is something like a Yasuo, a Koboko, Rek'Sai, something like that, it's like it's CC, shielding, a bit of health again to block your carries. But if you're playing Duelist and you get a 3-star Kog'Maw, you're not all that excited for this. But still, it's a 3-star Kog'Maw, which still does quite a bit of damage. So yeah, not bad, and definitely more helpful than the 5-cost one. Number 36. Jax offers you a weapon from different armories. Well, we've already discussed the support anvils and the artifact anvil. Well, this time you have a choice. Choose between a support item or an artifact. If you're already, if it's late game and you're already, well, all my carries have 3 items, all my tanks have 3 items, I could use a bit more stats, choose a support item. If it's early, and you're looking for that one item that can maybe really turn your game around, then an artifact could be awesome. But yeah, you always have a choice. There will always be at least something helpful and sometimes something extremely transformative that can win you the game. So yeah, very, very good. Azir grants you 6 permanent rerolls. Now this is just better than Alawi because you can save these ones. So if you're playing for power level and you're level 6 or 7 and you're like, okay, I'm gonna wait till 8 and then use these to get my forecast going, get my upgrades, then you can do that. If you want to spend them now and look for your 3-star Gnar, you can also do that. Permanent ones are most of the time better than non-permanent ones. Now, closing off B tier, Wukong grants you 6 radiant items. They vanish in 1 round. This is once again extremely overwhelming, extremely chaotic, yet also extremely fun. So, yeah, 6 radiant items. If you get this early, if you get this in stage 2, for example, this can be extremely fun. You can do a lot of it, a lot with it. It can lead to extremely chaotic fights. But also very, very fun to watch. And it's only 1 round, so if you don't get great items, it won't hurt you that much. And the very, very final one in B tier, Ornn grants you 6 artifacts. They vanish in 1 round. Very similar to the Wukong one, though artifacts are sometimes just able to do more than radiant items. Sometimes it also does less, but if it does more and it is more effective, then it is extremely, extremely effective. So yeah, 2 very similar ones, 2 very fun ones, can make the game extremely chaotic, but also very funny. So yeah, great, great encounters. Moving on to the A tier, where you say thank you, and you actually mean it. These are helpful, these are fun, these are creative, or just, as I said, just always very helpful. Like, yes, we get this encounter, we get something good. For sure. Neeko adds a lesser champion duplicator to every champion on the carousel. As we said before, carousel encounters are most of the time a bit more chaotic and a bit more RNG heavy than some. Not in this case, which is why it's in A tier. Neeko, the lesser duplicator, is basically at least a free 3 gold. And at the most can help you 3-star your 3 costs. So, extremely helpful. Thank you, Neeko. Bless your heart. Strongest tomato in the game. White paints an entire carousel full of 5 costs. Now this one I put here because it has the similar problem that 4 costs, the Morgana one, can have with the 4 costs. The thing is that I think the Hui encounter cannot appear on stage 2 and 3. So by the time you get to it, you most of the time will have an idea of what comp you're gonna play. And then you're like, okay, I'm playing a mythic comp. I definitely want the Hui, and the Hui is most likely gone. So I hope you're losing. But if you're stuck without something, then you're like, well, I guess I'll take a Lissandra, I guess. Like, maybe you have a random Lux or an Ashe and you can splat into Porcelain. It's very rarely bad for you, but when you hit that one champion that you want with, if you're very lucky, the item that you want, then yeah, this can take off and this can really accelerate you towards that first place. Wukong adds a radiant item to every champion on the carousel. I have not seen this encounter that much myself. I think it might have been removed, but I'm not 100% sure. But a radiant item are of course extremely powerful items that can, similarly to the 5 costs, accelerate you towards that first place if you happen to get that Radiant Guinsooth for your Aurelia, or your Radiant BT for your 3-star Gnar. Stuff like that. They can be extremely helpful. But on the other hand, if you're stuck with like a sucky one and you're stuck with a Radiant QSS and you only have tanks left, then it's a pretty big difference in power, and it can really lack. You can really lack that extra oof that it takes to maybe secure the top 4. So it can be a bit annoying if you don't get what you want. Ornette's an artifact every champion on the carousel. Again, very similar to the Radiant one, just artifacts can be more transformative, more unique, and therefore I like them more. Now here we have, I think, the final random augment one. Azir moves the 3-2 and 4-2 augments to random rounds. These can just be extremely fun, where you have all your augments by stage 3, or you have one augment in stage 2, and then none until stage 5. It happens. So this is a bit more random, why it's a bit lower in A tier, but at least you'll get your 2-1 augment, which makes you steer towards a comp a lot easier, and you don't have to wait until stage 3 to have an idea of what you're playing. I was lying. This is the final one. Lux moves the 4-2 augment to a random round. This can, again, have very similar effects, but at least you have the guarantee that the 2-1 and 3-2 augments are in stage 2 and 3. And if you're lucky, the 4-2 gets moved to stage 3 or 2. And if you're unlucky, the 4-2 augments gets moved to stage 5. But at least you'll get 2 augments that can help you out a lot and can steer your board in the right direction. So, yeah, solid encounters that are a bit fun, a bit of RNG, a bit of Gamba, but most of the time are fine. Play grants you a training dummy for 5 seconds. You get a gold for every player combat that survives. Now this one I ranked here because I thought the design of it is great. It is essentially just escort quest for a couple rounds. Everybody gets it, so it very much encourages you to strengthen your board now. And if you happen to be on a loss streak, that can feel a little bad. Especially if you're playing like Fortune or something, this is basically useless. But still, I think the design of this is fun. It can get you a little less loot than a lot of the other encounters can, which is why it's ranked a little lower. But still, I like the creative design of it and think it's just an awesome augment encounter. 25. Lissandra grants you an artifact for 22 gold or a component anvil for 11 gold, or you can choose to do nothing. Now this one is very, very it's a bit of a risk, and the risk is quite high because 22 gold is nothing to sneeze at. 22 gold is -2 econ for at least a couple rounds, and this can hurt you. This can hurt you quite a bit. If you don't get the artifact that you want, damn, sucks. You lose 22 gold and you don't have an augment. When you hit it though, it's awesome. And the fact that it also has that component anvil, that if you have like that one component in stage 4 or 5, that is still left on your bench and you're like, well, what am I supposed to do with this? Buy a component anvil for 11 gold and you have a free completed item. And even if you don't want to take the risk, you can also choose to do nothing. So, great design of the augment. Absolutely love it. I always take the artifact anvil because, again, I'm a casual gambler. And I really like the idea of that. 24. The carousel is full of Amumu's 2-star 3-cost friends. Now this is, again, could be very risky. At least it grants you quite a bit of gold, because a 2-star 3-cost is 8 gold. So it's quite a bit of gold. If it happens to be your lucky day and you hit that 2-star Amumu, for example, or the 2-star Bard with like a bow or an Amumu with a belt, you're like, damn, nice. I have another 2-star 3-cost. And if you don't, it's still 8 gold. Still far from useless. So, yeah, really nice. 23. Janna grants you a choice between different champions. Now, I think this one might have been removed as well, but I still want to talk about it because I really liked it. You had the choice between 3 different categories of champions, if I say that correctly. Similar to one we'll see in a little bit. And you can just choose to you get 2 costs, or you get duelists, or you can get wardens, or anything. And there are always 3 choices of categories of champions. And you're like, well, alright, nice. If you hit it, awesome. You have a couple upgrades, you have a bit of strength to your board. If you don't, it's still a bit of gold. So still not bad. Whenever you bench a unit, Malphite knocks their items off. Now this is another one. This is one of those examples that has a permanent version and a temporary version. We'll just be looking at the permanent version, because if you get this one, it is very good or very bad. Because this augment can also augment. I keep saying augment. Encounter. If this encounter happens to occur in a pretty late, more late stage, then most of the time you've already slammed your items, you've already itemized all your carries, all your tanks, and this does essentially nothing. When it does happen at the very beginning, or at least in the very early stages of the game, you're very happy, because then you can, for one, re-roll your 3-star 1 costs and can itemize them fully and don't have to risk them, because you can just bench them in the late game and put your items on your 4 costs or your 5 costs. Great, makes it really flexible. If you happen to hit a 5 cost very early and you have your items on a 3 cost because you thought you had to wait for your 5 cost a little more, then you can still bench the 3 cost, put your items on the 5 cost. It's still just always useful, and it just feels fun, the idea of a gigantic mountain slapping the items off your units. I don't know, I like that idea. Yorick lets you always feel at least 7 champions regardless of level, gain 10 gold. This is one of the few encounters that I think can only occur at the very beginning, which makes sense, of course. And this one transforms the game by quite a lot, and it is not always good. But it's at the very least just fun. It's extremely good for reroll comps. And it can also help you econ a lot more, because you get 10 gold. 10 gold is a lot. And yeah, so you can get a lot of econ from it and lose streak, or you can build a very solid board. For example, if the Exalted or something is the 1 cost or the 2 cost one, you can instantly slot in 5 Exalted and be set for the late game. Works for like a charm. And if you reach level 8, you can put in your 8th champion. It's not just always 7. It's 7 or more. So, and that's what makes it so good. Because if it was always 7, then it would be like, well, I can only fit in 7. What's the reason? Why would I even level the 8? You know? But because it's at least 7, it feels like more of a buff rather than a trade-off. So I think it's a really great augment, really creatively designed as well, transforms the game by quite a lot, and most of the time it's in a very fun way. Shen offers you its choice of starter packs containing champions and 1 component. This is what I would say is just the better version of the Janna that we saw earlier. You get to pick 3 categories of champions, and you get, I think, 3 champions and 1 component. That is very helpful for comps like that. And yeah, this is just great. A bit of RNG, which I always like. I like a bit of RNG in my games, and Shen is basically always useful. Especially if you already know what you have and you happen to hit that in the starter packs. Great, you get 3 more champions that fit your theme and an item component that can help. Great to have, basically always. For 5 rounds, Darius transforms the champions on the highlighted bench slots into different random ones of the same costs. Now, this is a very complicated way to say for 5 rounds you get Pandora's Bench. And as someone who loved Pandora's Bench, I am very happy that they put this encounter in the game. I personally am a big fan of 3-cost rerolls, and this is awesome for that, because maybe you luck out and you hit, again, your Bard 3 from this encounter, and if you don't, then it might waste your items. Might waste your gold a little bit. But most of the time, you'll hit at least a couple champions that you want. So it is at the very least useful, and I'm biased. I really like Pandora's Bench. So pretty high A tier for me. Bard levels all players to level 3. Awesome. Being level 3 at the very beginning of the game is a very big deal, because this means that you essentially have 6 free XP. Now 6 EXP at the beginning of the game is a big deal, because that means that you can be, I think you can be level 5 at 2-5. And that can be, or sorry, you can be level, is it level 6 to 5? It might be even level 6 at 2-5. And that can be very useful because that means that it's very likely you'll hit early 4 costs, a high chance of hitting a 2-star 3 cost. You can really spike hard with this. Sometimes you're just unlucky and can't find it, but hey, you can blame that on Mordog, and then there's nothing. Then, of course, nothing happens after that. So, yeah. In the worst case scenario, you can just blame Mordog, and that is always good. Jenna grants you a treasure armory, can be rolled up to 10 times. Now this is the one with, I think, one completed item and a component. And again, 10 rerolls is a lot better than 3, which means that the likelihood that you hit something that you can use or is at least useful to you is quite high. And it's always just really nice to have to complete that completed item that you want, maybe to have that little extra strength, that little item that your Gwynsus for your Janna, or no, Gwynsus Janna works. Gwynsus for your Aurelia, the BT for your frontline carry, maybe a solid tank item. It's very helpful. So, and again, very more. I wouldn't say guaranteed, but very, very likely that you hit something good here. 16. At 5-4, Kayn ends the game. Your position is then your final placement. I think this is a big one. Because I am someone that likes to play tempo. I am someone that likes to get their early strength in, to be at level 5 at 2-5, to all that kind of stuff. I like that. So I personally really like it when this one occurs, because I can stomp the lobby, because a lot of people who are hyper focused on that late game strategy of like playing Fortune, which I have literally seen, by the way. I have seen people play Fortune in this game, in this encounter. Do not do that. Do not play for Lost Streak in this game. Like, power level early, roll early, get your upgrades, get your good items, and then you can win. Because a 5-4 is a lot earlier than you think. There are many games that go to like stage 6 or higher. So ending at 5-4 means that you're very likely not to have your endgame board done. So have a strong early board, get that win streak going, snowball off of that, and win the game. It is very, very smart if you're playing around it. And because I like playing around it, this is a very high one for me. But I don't doubt that this one will be debated. Kai'Sa offers you a golden remover, a gold. This is essentially the better one of the Malphite one we talked about earlier, because the golden remover is essentially what the Malphite one does. But if, again, it's late game and you don't have much to use for a golden remover anymore, you can always choose to get a little bit of gold. So, to me, it's a straight upgrade of the Malphite encounter. Cho'Gath offers you 2 lesser or 1 golden duplicator. Now, it's been a while since we've seen a Cho'Gath encounter, and this is one that I personally really like, because it's always great to have. It's either 2 lesser duplicators to 3-star your 3 costs, or a golden duplicator to go for that risk and say, screw it, I'm going for that 5 cost upgrade, I'm going for that 3-star 5 cost, 3-star 4 cost, and I'm gonna win the game. So it's either a guarantee you get your 3 costs upgrade, or you can take a risk, go for the golden duplicator, and say, YOLO, I'm going for it. So, awesome encounter, always great to see, and yeah, seeing Cho'Gath to me is either I love it or I absolutely despise it. So, yeah. Unlucky 13, but not all that unlucky in my opinion. Choose 1 component, Zyra grants you 3 copies of it. I think this is also gonna be a bit of a hot take. I like this one a lot, because most of the time, 3 copies of 1 component is extremely helpful. You get 4 choices of components, and if you get 3 of them, if you get 3 bows, you have a red buff and a Gwynsus. If you get a belt, that's a free Warmogs and maybe a Redemption, or a Sunfire. If you get 3... If you get 3 chain vests, you can go for a Bramble vest and maybe a Titans or an Edge of Night. It is always amazing to have, because the 2 of the same component items are most of the time really, really good. Like I said, Red Buff, Dragonclaw, Bramblevest, Warmogs is okay. That's League of Legends. That's OP in League of Legends right now. But yeah, you have the jeez, what is there? The blue buff, of course. How can I forget blue buff? Uh, these are all really, really good items on a lot of carries. So I like this one a lot. If you don't hit it, it's a very feels bad one, which holds that from S tier for me. But I really, really like it. It's a very creatively designed encounter. And I think it can absolutely win you the game. Zoe alters reality so only odd levels exist. Now this is another one that is extremely creative and transformative. And if you know my stand on Kayn, which, well, if you haven't, like, where were you a minute ago? But only odd levels makes it so that it goes from 1 to 3 to 5 to 7 and 9. Now, there used to also be one that only even levels exist, but that one was awful, but everybody just fast 10s. And it was just chaotic, and if you're lucky, you're lucky. If you're not, you're not. This one is a lot more strategic. Because at level 1, you can choose to instantly level the 3 and have a lot more chances of getting 2 cost and get that 2 cost upgrade, which can really help you snowball. At level 5, you can get the 5 very fast. And have a good chance that you maybe can find a 4 cost. If you're lucky, it's the good 4 cost that you want. If you're not, you can at least play around having a 4 cost in your comp very early. And then at 7, you can look for your 3-star 3 cost very early. And if you're really, really risky, you instantly go for that 9 and you go for that 5 cost and see, like, you know what, screw it, I'm going for this. The only thing is, of course, that it is not all that great for 4 cost rerolls. Because most of the time you want to roll at 8, and at 9 it's still not bad. So 4 costs are definitely still playable on this encounter. But yeah, I'd say it definitely favors something like 3 cost reroll more. And as I said before, I love 3 cost reroll. 11. Darius offers you a choice between 20 XP or 10 rerolls. Another one of those that I'd say the choices here, creative. I think this is the only one that actually offers you just plain XP, which makes it very unique, which is already a prey in my book. And it's also one of those that is always helpful. It always offers you something that is extremely helpful. Either you're going for a level comp and you want to go fast 9 and you take the XP, well, that saves you 20 gold. Or you can choose the 10 rerolls if you're level 7 and go for the 3-star 3 cost. It is always amazingly helpful because the rerolls carry over between rounds. So these are always extremely helpful, really good choices. I like this one a lot. I'm basically always happy if this one shows up. Number 10, we're entering the top 10. Guess the outcome of your next fight. Teemo grants you a reward if you're correct. Now this is one where it rewards very skillful and a very skillful analysis. It is very hard for a lot of people to read your board strength correctly to other people. And sometimes that is difficult. Sometimes it's just very hard to see if you're stronger or not. But if you're smart and you're thinking, well, I'm playing Fortune, of course I'm gonna lose, well, that's a free 7 gold. But if you're very strong and you take that gamble on, okay, I'm gonna win the next fight, then you get 12 gold. I think it was 12, maybe 13 gold. That is a lot. As I said, more than 10 gold is a lot of gold. And if you take that risk and you get that cash out and you already have a win essentially, which means you're already probably at least relatively strong, you get that 10 gold, which means you can snowball even more. And this is one of those encounters that can really set you on a path towards victory. So I like it. I like it a lot. Now, approaching S tier, we have The legendary Kobako invites you to dance with him. The more players join in, the better the reward. This one almost made it to S tier. This one almost made it to S tier, but there is one simple annoyance that I have. People join in, for fuck's sake. There has been so many times where this encounter appears at the very beginning, and some people are AFK, or in the middle of the game, and some people just decide not to join. Why? Why do you do that? It happens so often. And it annoys the hell out of me. Yeah, exactly. Falky in chat as well. People don't dance for fuck's sake. It's so easy. It is so stupidly easy. And people just don't do it. And I'm like, what? Join! So that is the single thing that holds it back from S tier for me. It's an amazing encounter. Thematically, absolutely brilliant, because Kobako is friends with everybody and invites everybody to the dance floor for a party. It just fits his character really, really well. And I love it. But yeah, that one single annoyance holds it back from S tier. Number 8, and the final one in A tier, if I remember correctly. 8. Rakan encourages you to recombobulate your board or gives you some gold. Now, we love recombobulating. Recombobulating is the ultimate TFT gamble. And recombobulating, if you have something, if this happens very early in stage 3 or something, and you don't know exactly what you want to play yet, and you happen to have like a 2-star 3 cost, boom, you have a 2-star 4 cost now. Awesome. Really, really good. If you don't want that, you can always pick some gold and choose to stick with that. And yeah, if you choose that Gamba and you have that 2-star 2 cost and 2-star 3 cost, and they turn into like a Tahm Kench and a Lilia, and you're like, damn, we're playing Mythic and we're going for something, and I can snowball to the win, it feels awesome. And I love that. So, Rakan, because it's not always helpful and not always amazing, holds it back from S tier, but is the gatekeeper from S tier. Speaking of which, let's move into S tier, shall we? S tier. Keep coming. Because these are the encounters that if I see them, I'm like, yes, again, this one. Keep them coming. Give me more of those. I want these in every single game. And I love them. So, let's move on to number 7. Teemo adds a spatula to each champion on the carousel. This is the bottom of S tier for me. Because while it's amazing that every single champion on the carousel gets a spatula, sometimes when you're playing a team that has no use for a spatula, let's say a duelist comp, or maybe an arcanist comp, then you're like, well, alright, I got a spatula. Cool, maybe I can make a porcelain emblem or a heavenly emblem, and that's far from bad, but still, you're not excited about it. But when you're playing that Storyweaver comp, and you're looking for that final emblem to get to that 10, and you see the Teemo encounter popping up at the carousel, you feel exhilarated, you feel excited, you feel like, yes, we're doing this 10 Storyweaver comp, and it feels just so amazing that I want to see it every single game. But again, that slight bit of annoyance when you're like, well, this does nothing for me. Holds it back a little bit from the top 5. Lee Sin offers you an armory of radiant items, which can be reroll up to 10 times. Now this is, we talked about radiant items before. Radiant items are very transformative, very powerful items, and 10 rerolls at least gives you most of the time, at least gives you one that you at least can use, or at least is useful, and when it hits, it feels awesome. When you get that Radiant Windsuit, when you get that Radiant BT or IE, it feels amazing. The thing is though, there are more versions of this. It's just a treasure armory, which is not all that exciting. It's not all that creative. We've seen them before. There are more of it. Holds it back from the top 5 or even the top 3 for me, but still definitely amazing to see just a free Radiant item. Number 5. Yorick reduces your reroll cost by 1 for the rest of the game. I love this one. This one, as a reroll player myself, is of course always great. And even if you're not a reroll player, you can power level to 8 or 9 and be like, you know what? Screw it. I'm just gonna roll at 8 or 9 for my 3-star forecast. And you know what? That's a perfectly valid strategy. It helps everybody. But it especially helps people like me who love 3 or 2 cost rerolls and have like 2, 3, maybe even 4 3-stars by the end of the game. And are impossible to beat because you have a 3-star Tahm Kench and a 3-star like a 3-star Koboko in the front line, and they can't kill anything. It is awesome, and I love to see it every single time. Number 4. Annie offers you better shops or more gold for the next few rounds. Now, we all know this one, we've all seen this one. It's quite rare for what I know, but yeah, better shops, of course, always great. If you're level 9 or level 10, you can choose the better shops and roll for your 3-star 4 cost or 5 cost, because the shop odds are amazing at level 9 and 10. If not, you can get a lot more gold and really get that econ going and power level to 9 or 10, and then find your 2-star 4 cost or 2-star 5 cost. It is always great to see. It is quite rare, which makes it even better to me. So when you see that any encounter pop up, it's like, yes, let's go. Gold, 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 or just a lot of champions. It feels basically always amazing. But a little better, number 3. Kha'Zix causes XP to cost 3 gold instead of 4. Evolve. This one is just fun, because this one is always helpful. You, and even more than the Yorick one, because the Yorick one, if you're not a reroll player, the Yorick one was not as useful. The Kha'Zix one, on the other hand, Kha'Zix always helps, because if you're a reroll player, like a 2 or a 3 cost, you can get easier to 6 or 7, reroll then, and then get even easier to 8 or 9. If you're a power level player, you're exhilarated by this, because the fast 10 is so stupidly easy with this portal. And it makes it awesome. It causes some insane late game fights, especially when people play Fortune with this or something, and are level 10 at like 5-2, and roll to that 3-star 5 cost in a ranked game. Whenever you see it, it just feels amazing to see. And yeah, it's a bit more on the RNG side, because of course you have to roll for it, you have to get a little lucky, but overall, amazing encounter. Number 2. Darius causes enemies to have a 30% chance of dropping loot when killed. Now, this was already an augment before, which is what holds it back from being my number 1, because this was my favorite augment of all time. I love this augment. I think it encourages snowballing, it encourages strong early boards, and those are all things that I absolutely love. So, if you see this augment, or I keep saying augment, encounter, if you see this encounter at the very beginning of the game, like roll, like get your upgrades, get your 2-star 2 cost, get your 2-star 3 cost, the 3-star 3 cost if you will, and snowball off that loot, because the loot can be really good. You can get lesser dupes. I don't think you can get tomes from it, but like you can get item components, you can get duplicators. The loot is really, really solid. And yeah, it really can help you snowball more and more and more. And the reason why it's in my top 3 as well is because it fits Darius really well. Darius, and Noxian of course, is a raider. He invades other countries. He steals from them. So it feels thematically appropriate for Darius. So yeah, all of them. I love this one probably the most. But I have to be a little objective here, and I have to give it to what is objectively the most creative minigame in TFT right now. Send him puddles to catch fish for Tahm Kench. The more fish he eats, the more loot everybody gets. This is very similar to the Koboko one. The Koboko one has you dance in the middle, and everybody's like, yeah, we're dancing and we're dancing. And then you get, at most, I think, 3 component anvils. With Tahm Kench, the loot can get insane. Like, the loot can, if you reach, I think, like 70-something fishes, you can get stuff like tomes, radiant items, artifacts, like, absolutely insane loot. I have a little criticism for it, which is, of course, the same as the Koboko one. Sometimes people don't participate, but for the sheer creativity of this one, I just absolutely love it. And is my personal favorite. I said that wrong. It's not my personal favorite, which was the Darius one at number 2, but my objective choice for the most creative and well-designed encounter in TFT. With that, we came after 1.5 hours to the end of this list. And all I have to say is my throat hurts. But still, thank you very much for watching. If you want to let me know what you thought about it, if you had some hot takes for yourself, because I love hot takes, let me know. In a respectful way, of course. But let me know whatever you want to do. Let me know what you want to see. Let me know what you think of it. And most of all, show me your own list. Try to make your own list. I've given you all the encounters that are in the game. I can even put the link to the spreadsheet that I made in the description, where you can rank them yourself and show me a screenshot. I'd love to see those. But for now, again, thank you for watching. If you've seen this 1.5 hour list, I'm now gonna relax, drink a bit of beer, maybe play some TFT. And again, I hope to see you all maybe at the stream. I stream every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday on Maxim, my channel. And I hope to see you there. And if not, have a great rest of your day, evening, or whatever you'd still have to do. And